Hello and welcome to MaxPreps Podcast, Episode 2. Good day and welcome to MaxPreps.com, America's source for high school sports. And this is our MaxPreps Podcast where we just talk about topics around high school sports because we are MaxPreps and that's what we do. Today on this here podcast, we are going to be talking about protecting the game. It's a series that we've been releasing on big topics around high school sports and really protecting high school sports and the entity that we really feel is the backbone of America. So today's topic is, do I go or do I stay? It's about staying home and playing for a state championship, the importance around it for your community, yourself, and really does it bring value to you or not? In order for us to really talk about this topic, we got to bring in two people. The first person is the one that wrote the article on MaxPreps.com. It's Joe Davidson. He's a staff writer for the Sacramento Bee, 30 years of experience, and no one better to talk about this subject than him. The other one is Jordan Divens. He's MaxPreps' national basketball editor, and he has a national perspective of how this is affecting basketball and the trajectory it's taking it. All right, we are joined here by not only one guest, but two guests. We have Jordan Divens. He is our national basketball editor here at MaxPreps. He's actually in North Carolina right now, so we got our East Coast representative. And then we got the legend, the solid man, Sac Bee staff writer, Joe Davidson. And he's actually based out of Sacramento, California, which is the West Coast. So we got West Coast, East Coast, and the best coast. I'll say that's me, right? That's what we'll say. Well, today on this podcast, on this show, we're talking about the topic that Joe Davidson covered in his latest article, which is protecting the game and the joys of just staying at your hometown, playing for your home school, and having the joys of playing for a state championship or winning a state championship. So in this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about that because there's a lot of people out there that are not staying. They're getting pulled by prep schools or private school, wherever it is, and they're going and playing. And we're just going to try to touch on the subject of how great it is just to stay at your school for 4 years and the joys that could come from that. So I'm going to first let Joe Davidson take it over and kind of just talk a little bit about this subject and an opinion that you might have.
Well, it's interesting because why are we talking about things like this? Well, because high school sports are big business now, and high school basketball with big-time recruits and big-time teams make news. And these are the programs that feed into the college programs. And March Madness is here with the college basketball tournaments. And so it is big business. And a big-time player can impact a team, whether he stays put or he transfers, whether it's the gate receipts, places get sold out because of a player. There's a lot of revenue. There's a lot of interest. And, I think we're all on the same opinion that, staying at your own school is a great thing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime memory. And a lot of these guys in the story that we talk that we wrote about and what we'll talk about today is they talk about loyalty and legacy. They wanted to stay put, and we applaud that. And having covered high school sports for 30 years now, you see a lot of people coming and going, and the word transfer has a bad connotation, whether it's fair or not. But, we won a championship without transfers. They won a championship because of transfers. So it gets thrown around like that. It also happens in college basketball where a lot of first-year players will transfer. So people have the right, which is just fine, to bounce around and go. You hope it's not in the high school realm, it's tied to athletics. But come on, we're not naive. We know that people bounce around because of athletic advantages or so forth. But we do know this. If you're a good player and you have good film to show, with technology you can, if you had good transcripts, good grades, you're going to go somewhere. Any notion that you have to go to a frontline school to be recruited is ridiculous. And college recruiters, I've talked to them for many years. I know Jordan has too. They don't care about stats. They don't care about strength of schedule. They don't even care. They just want, show me some video clips and let me see your transcripts. And then we'll, whether it's football, track and field, swimming, or basketball. So my stance is, if you can stay at your school, stay at your school, because the rewards of just being in a championship chase is what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah. How about yourself, Jordan?
Yeah, and I think another thing that goes unmentioned sometimes is how much the teammates benefit from it. A lot of times there can be some seniors on the team that might not have any offers going into the season, but because of the national schedule that the top name recruit has brought upon the team, and because of all the events they're traveling to, they might play a basketball academy like an Oak Hill or a Montverde, and one of these guys might have 25 points on ESPNU or CBS Sports Network, or one of these national television stations, and how many college coaches are probably watching these games? So I think there's a lot of benefits to your teammates, and also, I mean, I think that it really benefits the kids to stay at the same school, because there's just nothing. You're never going to win another state title in your life. It's a once in a lifetime thing. It's kind of like in the NCAA. These kids talk about winning the NCAA for 1 year just to win that tournament. And I think that same thing happens in high school basketball. We want to come back one more year because we know we're going to win that state title, and we don't want to jump ship and transfer to another school. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and sometimes it can be a great opportunity for kids, but there's definitely benefit to staying at your hometown, being the big man on campus, and growing up with your teammates and giving them more opportunities as well.
Yeah.
So
one of the quotes I always like to hear is, what good is it to be a VIP if your friends can't join you? Like, you can sit in the VIP booth, but if your friends aren't there with you, you're just by yourself, and it's not as much fun. So you always want to bring your friends around and along. But go on, Joe. Sorry for interrupting.
And I know Jordan will agree with this, when kids transfer a lot, and sometimes we see high school kids who transfer 4 times in 4 years, that's a red flag for recruiters.
Right.
They don't want somebody who's bouncing around. Like, there's something wrong with that. They're not coachable.
There's loyalty.
Or they're exactly. There's all those variables. And the other thing about staying loyal and creating their own legacy, as the players in this story like to talk about, is people are watching. People are watching all across the country. Towns are watching. Alumni are watching. Media is watching, and a reputation is a big thing. And these guys value a reputation and loyalty. When you think of loyalty, that's got reputation dripping all over it. Good reputation.
Yeah, of course. I mean, at the end of the day, brands go behind reputation a lot of the times. We speak a lot about perception, and perception being reality. And if you're able to create that perception of loyalty, a lot of brands really, really actually like that. I mean, that's spoken about into the pros and everything else. It's like, oh, take this pay cut to create this. And people love that. The people love people that give up something in order to create something greater than just themselves. And that's something that's commendable a lot of the times. The landscape of high school basketball, though, is different nowadays. Now, we have an opinion on, hey, in general, what we hope everyone does is stay 4 years, or 3 years, however it is if they reclassify. We understand that there are times when reclassification actually helps you get to the proper class that you were at, and then you're able to go on and get to college and start making a living for yourself. And in no ways would anybody ever want a kid not to benefit themselves and to have a better life. That's not what I think any of us here are about. But the landscape of high school basketball is different. Speak on a little bit about the landscape right now that both of you guys are seeing that is different than maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Jordan, why don't you go first on that one?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, it hasn't been 10, 15 years. I haven't been covering it that long. I've been covering it probably 6 or 7 years. But even in this last 6 or 7 years, it's a huge difference. I mean, there's always been the academies. There's always been the Oak Hill academies of the world and the Montrose Christians of the world. There used to be. Now, the Montrose Christian, they've been replaced by other schools. They actually de-emphasized their basketball program. But there's been a ton of schools just sprouting up all over the country that are called these basketball academies or prep schools. And it's becoming a really competitive business of who can get the best prep athletes or the best underclassmen to their schools so that they can win a national championship, or some states it's just win a state title. But I think it's becoming more and more of an arm race in high school basketball and not just college. The recruiting doesn't start in college anymore or your senior year. It starts your freshman year of high school when you have a big year and Oak Hill and La Lumiere and Montverde are calling you and saying, hey, I think we have a spot for you. Why don't you come down to campus and check it out? So I think that it's definitely changed tremendously.
Yeah.
Well, and what I've seen, and I've been at Sacramento Bee for 30 years, the prep schools weren't around 30 years ago. And if there were very few of them. The IMG academies and all those prolific preps are relatively new. And what I don't like about some of them is there's an arrogance about it. Like, well, we could really develop you here, and you need to come here to really up your game, and we can do that. And that puts a lot of pressure on the kid and the parents who want the best for their kid, including, I've heard about some of these discussions that happen, and they're undermining the existing coach who's working with a kid, and sometimes and I just don't think that's always fair. Not all of them do that. I know some of the coaches, some of the people at Prolific Prep and Napa, and I think their intent is noble, but there's that kind of factor. And there's, like we said earlier, the high school basketball is bigger now than it's ever been. They're televised on ESPN. The McDonald's All-American game is a big deal. There's a big buildup and just to be nominated in those things and those showcases. There's a lot of social media makes it well more pronounced. I mean, the whole rise of MaxPreps. MaxPreps was created and grew under the whole foundation of, hey, high school sports is a great thing. And we'll have this site where you could put in photos and video clips and stats and records and history, and that's all new, but it also creates a big monster, and it starts to roll. And I think when we talk about protecting the game, the last thing any of us purists want to see is the prep schools dominating overwhelmingly, and the other schools are just kind of there. And I think more. It's a tough decision, and kids don't need to be overwhelmed any more than they are. If you're a blue chip guy, okay, if you go to a prep school, you're going to give up your senior year at your existing school. You don't get it back. You don't get it back. And every kid, I think, Jordan, we know so many kids we talk to, hey, what do you want to do in life? I want to be an NBA player. I mean, they always say that. So that's a great, ambitious goal. The reality is very, very few get that opportunity.
Very few, yeah. Very few make it there. And there's so many things that you're talking about. You brought up so many great points, and I have so many opinions on every single one of those points. I mean, at the end of the day, the events that you're asking to go to, you can be a really good team, but if you don't have that big ticket sale item, the big ticket, the Kevin Garnett, the guy that's going to bring people through the door, it might not matter to the event. ESPN might not put you on because you don't have a top 100 player, but you win the state championship, but they're not going to put you on. Or CBS Sports, they need those storylines and the big names in order to sell against that. And we always know that. The events, you can be a really good team and those others, but if you're a prep school and you can't even play against any schools in the state of California, that kind of sucks. And you can't play for a state championship and go through the roads of adversities and creating memories. All you're doing is, you're staying with your friends or your basketball teammates. So you have your basketball teammates all around you. You're not going to school, being social, having social events, dances. I know those are like little things, but it means a lot when you're just trying to grow up and you're just growing, and we've shown it countless times, you use all these different things. But yes, LeBron James did go to a Catholic school. We get it. All 4 years there at a Catholic school, but it hasn't hurt him at all. Zion Williamson went to Spartanburg Day. Sure, it is a quote-unquote private, not a prep or an academy, but he went all his years there, and it doesn't seem to have hurt him in any way. Nico Mannion, that's in the article as well, 3 years there, reclassified. So far, it doesn't look like it's hurt him. Joe Girard, that's in the article, 4 years at Glen Falls, doesn't look like it's hurt him. So at the end of the day, if you're good, our point is you could stay at your hometown, enjoy everything that's going on, and still be able to get recruited because of maybe being on an AAU team, or maybe having great success with your high school team and putting up big numbers and just getting there, getting the opportunity to play with USA basketball at an early age, and then already being on that radar and being on the right track to be successful and go towards that. So we really, I think what we're talking about here in this, and before I wrap things up, is the overall feel is staying at a school 4 years to participate in a state championship, and that run for a state championship is something that you can never have back. And we promote that kids will do that in order to not only help out their community, bring joy to their friends and family, but in a lot of the cases, you come through and you're a once in a generation talent. They might not have that talent come through again and ever have that run. And how special would it be to be the person that has their jersey hanging up in the rafters of their high school and be able to say, yeah, that one state championship that we got was because when I was there and I averaged X amount and my buddies did it with me. So at the end of the day, I think that just trumps all. And that's something that I love to see. But at the same time, I'm not mad at kids making decisions.
Exactly. And here's the thing. These players who stay at their school could really set a trend of being a role model. Hey, man, stay with the guys you started with. Finish what you started. And let's go a little bit deeper, too. We're talking about these blue chip 4-star, 5-star recruits. Well, there are 2-star recruits, 1-star recruits getting recruited by Division II or mid-majors or NAIA or something. Hey, same thing, man. You don't have to jump. Just do what you do. And
work hard.
Beyond wins and losses, be a good student because the recruiter will find out if you're not, and be a good citizen because if you're not a good citizen, then everybody knows because of any Boris stuff that they put on social media. Yeah. So, everybody's trying to do what they can do to further themselves. Sometimes just staying put is the best call of action right there.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't hurt to stay put. I think that's the fear.
More times than not, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to stay where you're at in a lot of cases, especially when you're good and you're putting in the work and you're doing what you can. I know there are instances, and we're going to wrap up right now. There are instances in academics, though, Joe, where the kid has to go to a prep school or a fifth year in order to become academically eligible to go and play at the D1 level. And in that instance, again, we're not knocking the fact of making that decision or taking that route to better yourself. We're saying that if you have the opportunity, it doesn't hurt to stay at your home and go for a state championship, and we commend those that do it. But we also know there are two sides, and we can talk about that all day. But I'm going to get you guys off, and I'm going to say thank you to both of you guys for joining me right here on Protecting the Game and talking about, the joys of going for a state championship and staying in your hometown. So thank you guys for joining me. Now, from Joe Davidson and Jordan Divens talking about it on a national perspective, we bring in an athlete that's actually lived through it. Joe Girard of Glen Falls High School in New York, 4,000-point scorer, and we need to have him join us right here to talk about the topic. So I am joined right now by Joe Girard. He is the first 4,000-point scorer in the history of New York basketball, and thanks for joining me today, Joe.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So you're out there in Glen Falls, New York, and I want to ask you, because we just did an article on just the joys of staying home and playing for your hometown team. Can you tell us why you stayed at your school, Glen Falls, rather than transferring to an academy school or a prep school?
Yeah, the thing that I've been living by and, kind of my motto has been be different. And, a lot of the kids that I've, played with in AAU and got to know in AAU, went on a different path. They left their local school, went off to, a prep school or an academy. And, I wanted to be different. I wanted to, show that you can, get to the highest level and get to, Division I level by a different way. And, my way was staying home. And, I didn't feel I needed to go, across the country or something to go to a new school to, improve my game. I could do it here with the trainers that I've been working with my whole life, my dad. And, the biggest thing I think was I didn't think it would feel right going to war, with anybody else this year. I got a lot of family members here, a lot of, kids that I've grown up playing both sports with. And, I wanted to continue playing football. And, this was something that was huge for me is to, win a state title in football with the, guys that I grew up with and hopefully go for another one in basketball tomorrow.
That's so cool, man. At the end of the day, you said, hey, I want to play two sports. I want to be a multi-sport athlete. I only get this time once in my life to play football and basketball, win states, be with my friends. So commend you on that. We always want to support the two-sport athletes, and the multi-sport athletes, because you only got one time. You might never get to play football again at a competitive level.
That's right. That's right.
Another question was, can you describe what it is like representing your hometown or your local school and to play or win for a state championship? Like, what does that actually feel like?
Yeah, it's an unbelievable feeling. I've won two state titles now in football, and it was the first time we ever won a state title in program history. We haven't won one yet in basketball. Jimmer, his group went to the states, and unfortunately they lost. So we're going tomorrow to for our first state title in program history. Hopefully we can win it, and it'd be an unbelievable feeling to win both the football state title and basketball state title in 1 year. But it's just something that it's hard to explain until you really feel it. Just to represent your community. I know GF Nation's been behind us my 4 years and 5 years here, and it's something that's truly, like I said, unexplainable. But it's something that I really live for and love being a part of.
Right. Can you describe maybe some of your favorite high school moments on and off the court? Like, do you have one that sticks out off the court and one that sticks out on it?
On the court and on the field, obviously it's winning state titles in football so far. Hopefully to go for the basketball one tomorrow. And just for individually, it's definitely been the 4,000 point and even just becoming New York State's all-time leading scorer. That's something that I'll remember forever. And winning Mr. Basketball this year, and then winning the Gatorade Player of the Year 2 years in a row is something I'll remember forever, and always have in my trophy room. So that's pretty cool. Something off the court. My parents have put academics on me pretty hard, and becoming part of the National Honor Society and scholar athlete for both football and basketball this year was a goal of mine. That going into this academic year, and to achieve that was pretty cool. So I think just the academics off the court and off the field was something that my parents wanted me to strive in to be better each and every day in it, and to be successful in it. So far I have.
Well, we commend you on both of those. Those are amazing accomplishments, both of them that I did not get. So
appreciate it.
in my skills, but those things that you talk about, especially the 4,000 point squad and everything else, you probably wouldn't have got that if you would have left your school and went to a prep school. You wouldn't have got those accolades by leaving, and now you have those trophies and you have those accolades, and we commend you for doing that. Lastly. Actually, I have two questions, but the second to last question, are you glad that you stayed? And if so, why are you glad?
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely, I feel this is the best decision for me. I wanted to, like I said, help these guys out, help them, win state titles, help, even myself and my family and the community win state titles. And I feel like, especially just leaving for my senior year, it wouldn't make much sense for me. I feel like I let these guys down. I got a lot of family members here in Glens Falls who I feel like I would let them down. And I wanted to be a part of something special. I knew that the groups in both sports would be pretty good, and I felt that if I stayed here, we'd have a pretty good opportunity to win state titles. And that's always the ultimate goal of each season. So to know we've got a shot at doing it again, I'm really proud of it, and I think that's the main reason I stayed, is just because of how much we've won here and how much I wanted to be a part of it.
So if you wouldn't have had the chance to win, would the idea of a prep school academy have been more of an option?
I've talked to. I didn't really talk too much to schools this year. I'm sure if I had been open to it, I would have talked to a few. But I think just the biggest thing and biggest reason that I stayed was the football thing. I wanted to play football another year. I loved playing this sport. I grew up playing it, and I had a passion for it. So, if I could have played at a prep school, maybe I would have went. But I think that was the biggest thing, is staying home in Glens Falls and playing football as well as basketball.
Cool. Yeah, and did you feel, what age did you kind of feel any pressure or tugging from prep schools or any other? Was there a certain age, and then they finally decided?
Yeah, I started playing on the City Rocks EYBL around 15U, 16U when everybody started leaving and everybody started, talking and getting recruited by prep schools even, and was getting watched at our games. So I think that was the only time that I really felt, it could have been an option, but
right.
I think my heart and my mind the whole time was in Glens Falls.
Well, thank you for joining us here. I know you're in the middle of going for a state championship. We appreciate it. This morning, you put big numbers up and won the game, and good luck tomorrow. And again, thank you for joining us here.
All right, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So there you have it. We've now spoken with Joe Davidson and Jordan Divens about the topic that the article touched on, about protecting the game and staying home at your high school and playing for a state championship, and really the impact that it really does have. We also just got off the phone with Joe Girard, 4,000 point scorer out of New York, first time in New York history. And we saw that him staying there for all 4 years gave him the opportunity to not only play football, but win back-to-back state champions there and go for a state championship in basketball with, in his words, no one else he'd rather go to war with than the guys that were on his team. So you've now seen the perspective from a basketball player that had the opportunity to go maybe on to prep school, the writers that have talked to others that have, and now all you got to do is go to MaxPreps.com and read the article and decide for yourself what your opinion is. Hopefully we've given you enough information to know where we stand, which is stay at your high school, enjoy the moments, you never get them back, and in the end, if you're good, it really doesn't hurt you that bad to just stay where you are. So that does it for me here at MaxPreps.com. I am Chris Stonebraker, and keep on clicking on to MaxPreps.com, America's source for high school sports.